Hey everyone, have you ever wondered what it took to become a licensed PEG author for Savage Worlds? Well, I've got Peter Saloom from Paris Tree Studio here to talk about his journey from fan to licensed product. And it's a cool product, and he'll tell you a little bit about it. So we'll walk through, learn about what it takes to become a licensed, make a product, get it released, and let's see what happens. Savage Worlds, one of the best games today. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your feedback, comments, likes, subscribes, all that good stuff that YouTubers like. But the most important thing is, what are we talking about tonight? Tonight I've got Peter Saloom here from Pear Tree Studio to talk about what it takes to become a licensee, the steps he took to publish his own product, his first product, and all that good stuff. You know, it's just so you learn and we learn together and follow his journey. And so let's start off. Peter, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about the product. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Carl. Thank you for having me. My name's Peter Saloom. I live in New England. I'm a longtime gamer, writer, sort of creative person all around. And so I've been doing things creatively in gaming for many years, and I've been writing and editing for other professionals and PEG licensees. And I decided recently to kind of stand up my own little project, which is Pear Tree Studio.
Very cool. Very cool. So you have your very first product released under your moniker that just came out. It's got some good buzz. I mean,
That's correct.
It's got some really nice buzz. So tell us a little bit about it. Tell us more about the product and sort of what it's all about, because most of the time people think about, ACE licensees as big setting books and things like that. And that's not what you did. You did something very targeted, very cool. And so, yeah, tell us all about it. Everybody's going to want to know.
Sure. So the first product that I've launched is called Shadows of the Sacred Hills. I actually have the test print copy here that I'm going through for print on demand release coming up. Nice. And it is a Weird West genre, one-shot convention-style adventure. I call it horror investigation is sort of my label for this style of gameplay. So it is Wild West, alternate American history with horror elements that is separate and unaffiliated, I should say, with the Deadlands IP. It is not Deadlands. It doesn't cross into that type of that world or that intellectual property. I'm really excited about it. It is different than what you see from a lot of ACE licensees. You mentioned this, Carl. People have this expectation that maybe it's big settings, big standalone things. It doesn't have to be. I'm kind of the type of person who likes to walk before I run. And this has been a good learning process for me as far as editing, publishing, layout, art, dealing with the back end on these websites that distribute the files. All of that is stuff I'm going through for the first time. And it's great to kind of work it out on a smaller scale project before kind of jumping into something much larger.
And I've read it. It's a good adventure too. I won't say anything because I don't want to give any of that away, right? So, but one of the things I really like is you did printable table tents of characters as part of the pre-gens. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have done that, so that's fantastic. And I like the characters, the characters that you have for people as pre-gens. That's pretty cool. I like them. So
thank you.
Very nicely. Yeah. Very nice for a first product. It's amazing. Tight, good looking, well written. It's very good very good. I mean, I wouldn't call it a first product. It's just happens to be the first one that you've published, but it definitely is very good. I think people would really like it. And it's not. It's if I remember right, it's $4.95 in the drive-through RPGs.
Yep.
So not expensive for a really great. Would you call it a one shot or 1.5 shot? Can you get through it in 3 hours or?
You certainly can. I've run it in 4-hour time slots at conventions now for a number of years. I just came back from a convention up here in Massachusetts called Total Con, which was this past weekend, where I ran 2 sessions of it. Both were 4 hours, and they both finished in time. It kind of depends on your GM style and your pacing. You could layer this in with an existing campaign or something like that and stretch it out, and I could see it being 1.5 or 2 sessions, depending on which way you took it as a game master.
Very cool. Very cool. So, like the product, go buy the product. But we're not here necessarily to talk about the product. We're talking about what's it take to become a licensee and get that first product out, kind of launch your career as a creative in the Savage Worlds universe. Now, just before we dive in too far, there's 3 licenses that Pinnacle has. One is the fan license, which is free. It's basically you're publishing stuff without expecting payment. It's all non-commercial. So there's a fan license. There's a swag license, the Savage Worlds Adventure Guild, which is where you create something, you distribute it through Drive-Thru RPG. They take a cut of it. Drive-Thru RPG takes a cut of it. And then there's the ACE, and I don't think that's an acronym. There's the ACE license, which is much more, well, I don't know. Let's talk about that. You're an ACE, right? So you're a full-fledged licensee. Why did you pick ACE versus swag? What drove you to pick one versus the other?
So I think if I had to sum it up quickly, it would be freedom, is what made me choose that. It is a harder process to apply for. Well, actually, it's the only process you really have to kind of directly apply and interact with the PEG folks in order to do. The swag license is really good. The fan license is also really good, Carl. I think one of the first steps when people are thinking about if this is for them is to understand kind of how deep they want to get into it and how much of your life do you want to dedicate to, the complications of figuring this out. Because if it's not for you, if you don't want to go to that level, if you don't want to incur the time and the cost associated with like professional layout and finding and working with artists and editors and things like that, I respect that. That's not for everybody. And the fan license may be awesome for you. The swag license is also great because, as I understand it, and I haven't released anything directly through swag.
I have, yeah.
So you may be able to speak to this better than me. You're still able to release and sell product only in the swag portal, as I understand it,
yep.
Through Drive-Thru RPG. Which
is
still a great place with lots of eyeballs, and a huge chunk of the community is involved in that. So that's a fantastic outlet.
Yeah, it's very similar to the D&D. Well, I forget the name of that one, but it's very similar to that. They're very loose with. You can do a lot of stuff with the IP and get it out there on swag. So I do have a couple. I have a couple of swag things, very minor, just an adventure and a character class and. People put out everything from like $1 character type, like a new arcane background, all the way to something a little more sophisticated. But we're not here to talk about what folks did on swag. We're talking about licensing and what's it take to do that. Let's start from the beginning. So you decided that this is something you wanted to do. What were the steps? Let's dig all the way through. And what are the steps that go into making this happen? Where do you even start, to be honest?
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess all creative people start somewhere with their inspiration. What's their idea? It's something that they're interested in, that they want to breathe life into and kind of put out there. So I think almost anybody listening to this who's considering this is probably already somewhat of a creator of some kind if they're considering this path. So that's probably behind them. The next thing I did was I looked at the people I admire in the community, specifically in the Savage Worlds community, who were writing and producing really fantastic content. And I correspond with them on a regular basis, and they were all ACE licensees. So that was an indicator to me that, well, if that's sort of the the club I want to be in, I guess, then it makes sense that I learn from them and kind of follow that path. So I'm big into, find people who have done what you're trying to do and learn from them if you can. Savage Worlds community is fantastic for that because there's brilliant, genius game designers and creators out there who will take the time to talk to you and tell you, the mistakes they've made in the past and teach you lessons. So that's sort of step number one. Then it's finding out, what are you going to put out there and kind of starting to create your actual draft, writing whether it's your setting, your adventure, your compendium, whatever the creative project is you're considering putting out there. There's a lot of writing, a lot of proofreading. If you're not a perfect, one pass writer, like I am not, you need a lot of volunteers and friends to read through your stuff and find all your typos and inconsistencies and this and that.
Did you have a formal editor? Did you have a formal editor, or was it friends and family and folks like that who helped out?
I didn't have a formal editor, but I'm strongly considering it for my next release, which is coming out this spring. The reason I didn't was I did editing for TTRPG books for years before I did this, and so I felt as though I can do this for myself, and I think I was kind of wrong, to be honest with you, because it is different when the narrative voice is your own mind versus when you are reading. For example, if you were to send me a manuscript or something you're creating, I can't read that with my own, narrative voice in my mind. That's me being able to see every little inconsistency or every little grammatical error you've made. It really stands out. Whereas it's camouflaged in your own brain if you've written it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's hard to see your errors because you made those errors, right? I mean, it's hard to pick them out.
Yeah, right. If you write the way you think, it certainly seems natural when you read it back to yourself. So I didn't have a formal editor that I was paying, word by word to go through it, and I do think maybe that might have been a lesson for me that I might change in the future. What I did was I used sort of my gaming and writing brain trust of people across the internet. And I gave them advanced drafts, and everybody was just, because they're nice people, nice enough to go through it and give me notes and ideas and catch things that I missed. Another really important thing I should point out is Pinnacle has a style guide for writers, and it is the style guide that they follow when they produce their books. And they really encourage ACE licensees to follow that because it makes it so that readers of your work are already familiar with the tense and the voice and the sort of accepted structure and language and paragraph formatting from Pinnacle books. So it makes it kind of seem cohesive from one product to the next. And so that was very helpful as well, reading through their style guide and applying that to my own writing. And that sort of changing the voice a little.
And that includes how you should represent rules when you reference them and parts of it. So it has a lot in it to help people along. So definitely with something that's one of the first things, right? Read that, understand it, really get in depth in that.
Yeah, because there's some rules you don't want to break in there, and you could unintentionally maybe violate one of these requirements from PEG if you weren't paying attention. There's a lot of stuff that you can include, and then there's certain stuff that they don't want you to simply be copying and pasting out of their work and into yours, and for good reason, and it makes sense. The idea of licensing us to create this stuff is so that their core books have a good product run and more customers for them, and that all makes sense to me. So you want to respect that. And it's also just really helpful. It makes your work better, and it makes it more accessible to players of the game.
Okay, very cool. So you're writing, you've got your kind of your drafts, people are editing them, helping you get your voice right. The feeling, where do you go from there? What's the next? So, I mean, got the Word document. Now you start really getting into the intensity of stuff, right?
Yeah. So now it's happening, right? Yeah. The ball is rolling. The next step for me is playtesting. I don't know for all writers how intense playtesting factors into their actual writing. The way I do this is because I'm very heavily a convention game master. I don't
Sure.
run a lot of long term, at home type of campaigns. It's just not the way my gaming life has worked out. Um, and so I'm drafting stuff to what I would consider 85% completion typically. And I'm running it at conventions and I'm labeling those games clearly as play tests when I'm running them. So people are prepared that there are going to be some bumps and weird things and some need for feedback along the way. And I do that a bunch of times for every adventure that I write. And after every playtest, I have sort of a rolling Google Doc of notes of what happened in those sessions. Does it require a change? Was there good feedback from a player or somebody observing on something we could do to improve it? What worked? What didn't work? What did people engage with? What did they ignore? That type of stuff. And so that brings me into the next revision phase of the drafts, where I'm getting closer and closer to what I think is the thing I want to actually put my stamp on and
So,
and put out there.
so do you actively solicit feedback, like at the end of the session, and say, "Hey, what was good? What was bad? What was the stars? What was the wishes?" Things like
Yes,
that.
I do, but I will tell you this: that's not always easy. I find that people feel put on the spot if you've sat them down for 3 or 4 hours, you've played this game, it's wrapping up, and you just say, "Hey, what do you think? I need some feedback because I'm planning on publishing this." Um, Generally people are just like really nice, kind of regardless of what they think, and they may
Yeah.
not share with you something that really bothered them because they're nice people. um, so what really helps me more than that is observation at the table of what's
Exactly.
going
Yep.
on with the players, and I have to sort of make that judgment on my own. I think over time I've developed kind of an okay sense of that. Where are players engaging big time is one of the questions I'm always sort of constantly asking myself. Where are they disengaging? Like, at what point did I see the cell phones come out at the table, right? Okay, that's when I probably lost them. um, Things like that. Where was the tension the highest? Where people were the most nervous about what was about to happen next? Those are things I love to include in my games, are these tense, creating these moments of tension at the table, because that's when everybody's having the most fun, and the next die roll is the most critical thing that could be happening. So I try to monitor those things actively, regardless of what people say at the end. And I also have a smaller percentage of folks that say, no, I'm going to sit here for 25 minutes after the game and I'm going to give you my feedback notes because I know what's going on. And that's incredibly valuable as well.
Yeah, for my swag product, which was an adventure, a smaller adventure, not as many scenes, kind of a one shot, as well. It was just watching people engage with what they were doing, and if there was confusion, saying, "Okay, there's confusion
Mm,
here," or they don't seem to know what they need to do, so I haven't led them right. It's not clear. The
mm.
descriptions aren't there. So I totally understand. I don't know if I've ever gotten anybody to really give me like feedback. You really have to kind of parse body language and things like that, just like you're saying, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. And if they're folks that have played with you for years and years and they know you're not, you don't bite, they're much more willing to say like, hey, you really lost us at this point. That doesn't need to be in there. We spent 30 minutes on that and it had nothing to do with where we ended up. So those folks are great, but it's also great to play test with people you've not played with
Right.
before, new people, because those are the people you're trying to get that product out to, are potentially people you've never met, maybe people who are new to the game, things like that. So it's important all around.
So we've got the draft is feeling good. It's
Yeah.
really, the game feels solid. It plays well. You've gotten a lot of good feedback. Now you've got to start. Now you got to turn the corner, right? And
Yeah.
this is where like the
And
fan
that,
folks may go and say, "I'll just put it on the internet." But now, if you're publishing, the next part becomes
There's a
hard.
whole nother level, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've got your play test done, you've revised it, and you've got it to where this thing is tight. I love it. It works, and I'm ready to go. Well, in terms of ACE licensing, PEG is looking for what they call quote unquote professional trade dress, which is, a professional level of page layout, of typesetting, artwork, visuals, all the stuff that you would see if you opened a Pinnacle book. All of those kind of factors should be represented. So that means, cover art, interior art, maybe character art, maps and visuals are hugely important, especially to GMs who are going to pick up your product and they want to just open it one weekend and run it for their home group. They need all of that stuff so that they're not stuck, coming up with this on the fly. And so, if you happen to be an artist, great. You could probably do all that on your own. I am not, at least not a professional artist. I do okay with the maps and things like that, but you have to go out there and you have to talk to artists. You have to find stock art. You have to find original art. I will say that Pinnacle allows their licensees, their ACE licensees, to use um, certain kind of folders full of stock art that are available to all ACE licensees as well. So you could work from that stuff too, but you got to make sure you're working from approved images that you have a commercial license to use and permission to use, and that's where this becomes less of the fan level and more of the business level. I think is how I would
Oh, okay.
describe it. Is you got to make sure you kind of keep your nose clean, you're doing the right thing, and that it all comes together and looks good. I was lucky. I already knew long, long time ago that I wanted Carl Kiesler to do my layout and trade dress because every book I've ever read by him just looks amazing, and I'm a huge fan of.
Well, he's a luminary.
Yeah, shout out to him. Shout out to Doghouse Rules and everything they do because it's like 10 out of 10 every time. So I was chasing him, well before I knew I was going to do this. I was chasing him, and yeah, and then for artists, I'm working with artists currently for my next project, and boy, it's really challenging. Trying to give artistic direction to creative people all around the world doing their own thing and try to get the results you want is, definitely a learning process for me.
Because you're looking for a style and you're looking for, so you probably try to find artists who that's their style. And so how did so obviously Carl is like luminary, but how did you find the artists this is your first product that you're ACE licensing, so I'm sure there was some discovery that had to be done. And where was it all these contacts from long ago? They said, oh, you need to talk to this artist, you need to talk to this person. How did you get to that stage?
Oh, so what I did for Shadows of the Sacred Hills is I hired no artists. I did all the interior art myself, and we licensed the image for the front cover, which is also used in a smaller format on the rear cover of the book. So I didn't actually have to hire an artist and work image by image through that process. Now, as I'm talking to you, Shadows of the Sacred Hills is out, and I'm working on project number 2. And I am taking that path where I have hired an artist, and I'm working from start to finish with actually an art firm from start to finish for this next project. And it is much more involved because, just like you said, first you need to find the look that is appropriate to what you're doing. Then you have to be able to convey the message of what it is you need from that artist, which is really hard. It's very hard to talk to a visual artist person and type to them what you want them to draw, right? Because they don't think that way. They think very visually. So you end up finding pictures all over the internet and saying, I like this head, but these shoes and this lighting and this equipment, and you're pointing at all of these things and saying, and then make it my own too. Don't just copy all that. And
What did they call
it's
that? What did they
exciting.
call that? The dream board or something? There's a name for that, right? Where you put all
Exactly.
that stuff
Yeah.
in, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Storyboard, dream board. And you're literally, if you're me, you're copy and pasting like all these elements of different pictures into one. And it looks like this horrible Frankenstein image. And you're trying to get that inspiration into the mind of the artist that you're working with. And then you wait, you just kind of anxiously wait and see what comes back. But it's exciting and it's fun. Um, it's expensive. So again, if you're thinking about, what level of licensing you want to go through, that's a hurdle. You don't have to do it. You could be an ACE licensee and maybe, get away with using the licensed art from Pinnacle for the rest of your days. That may be possible. It wasn't for me, and it's something you should just be prepared to think about and prepared to factor into kind of your budget and your level of commitment.
Okay, very cool. So you're working with the artist. You've got it's now you've got the assets that you need
Yep.
to pull it all together. Then I'm assuming run through the layout, start doing pulling everything together as far as how things look, how it all
Yep.
kind of seems together, and that's is that when the book starts or the document starts coming to a phase where you can really start kind of sharing it out and having people really go, oh, I get what this looks like. Does Pinnacle
Yes.
ever get involved with it at any stage to look at what you've got? And
Yeah. Absolutely. So. The first part of your question, it really starts to look like the product when the trade dress from whoever your layout person is dropped in and the text is put in it. That's when, for me, I get the feel of like, this is what the book's going to look like as people turn through it, or this is what the PDF is going to look like, and I'm okay with it or I'm not. So that's a big deal. Then, so then all the art gets sent from the artist to the layout person and it starts getting dropped in where it's appropriate. And as a writer, I don't have much to do with that. That's the visual guys figure that out. They make sure that the words fit on the page and the pictures go where they need to go, and that's great. Um, the licensing part, though, is um, Shane and this fellow named Danny Walsh and also Brian Reeves over at Pinnacle are all involved in talking to writers and creative people all the time. And you need to submit an application to them, which is basically an email introduction of yourself, the product you plan to launch, and visual examples of the quality level of what you're planning to produce is what they request. And so I did that. I submitted that. It did not take very long to hear back. I want to say under a week. In my case, I don't know if that's standard or what. Um, and they are, as I've always known, they're a company that's very easy to work with and that are very supportive of people who are creative in the community. So um, we, shot the idea past Shane, who needs to, give these things sort of the final blessing. He was kind enough to, take a look at it and give it the thumbs up. And then from there, Danny walks you through the details of signing the contract, making sure you know the rules you have to follow. There are royalties you have to agree to, as you continue to sell the product, all of that. And once you're clear on that and the ink has dried, the ACE license is applied. And I should make this clear. The ACE license is applied to me at that time. It's not applied to the adventure. The ACE licensing is applied to all things that I create now for Savage Worlds. The next book that I release, I don't have to go through this process that we're describing, where I'm submitting this to Peg and these guys have to take a look at it and judge it. I'm good now, to continue to do this sort of at the level that I've pledged to do it at and that they've approved.
got it. Okay, yeah, that I did not know. I mean, I knew it was applied to you, but you don't have to provide them samples for the next product and have them okay it.
No, I do have they will always receive a copy of my work. That I would always want them to do that. And I'd always want them to know what I'm up to. But we don't have to go through the same. Submit the samples. Does the layout look right? Does it look to the right level?
Right.
That part is passed, as I understand it. I guess I could be misunderstanding, but I'm fairly
As
confident
far
I'm
as you
clear on
know,
this.
as far as you know.
If I am, I know that the comments are going to blow up, and we will be corrected very quickly, and I'll appreciate that because I need to know.
Any
But
engagement's
no,
good engagement. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah, no, but I'm confident. That's the way it works, and that's the way it's worked for my other licensee, friends that have done this.
So now you've got the license, you've got it okay, you've got the product ready to go. I think something that people don't talk a lot about that I'm interested in is now the bringing it to market,
Yeah,
and then obviously you're on my channel, so you're marketing it, you're getting the word out. Sort of it's
yeah,
almost the business side of it now is getting it out there,
yes.
launching it, marketing it. It's kind of give some insight to folks who are like, they can make a book, but now comes
Mhm.
the hard part, right? To get it out there in front of
Yes.
people's eyeballs.
And it can be very hard to go, for some people to go out there and talk to people and say, this is a thing I made and you should buy it. That can be socially awkward for some people, depending on sort of their personality types. One thing that's great, again, if you are at the ACE license level, is PEG will do a bunch of it for you. They're very into promoting their ACE licensee level creators. They have a page on their website dedicated to it. They have a newsletter that is weekly, I believe, where they're always putting
Yep.
some licensee spotlight in there. They'll put you in their social media. They have other things that they'll mention. They'll mention you on. Landauer goes on, the Facebook and YouTube and talks about, creators like that, and that's all stuff that is not, there's no cost associated to that other than tell them about it and hope that it gets in there. So they're really supportive about that. The rest is on you. You're going to need to have some kind of social media engagement. You're going to need to be kind of networked into the community. You're going to have a reason to tell people about what you're doing and why they want it. And that's just marketing 101, really, for
Sure. Yeah.
any product. You could just stick it up on drive-through and never talk about it again and kind of see where the chips fall. Generally, that's not a advisable, digital marketing strategy. So what I do is I engage in social media. I'm out here talking to people like you, and who are like vital information hubs for the Savage Worlds community. Is people tune in whether they're at home, at work, or whatever, and they're learning about what is going on in the game that they love. Right, so that's an important place to be. And then the other thing is the product has to be good, because I don't care how much you want to market, and you could get thousands of eyes on your product a month. If it's not very good, and if it doesn't actually provide a good time and a good
Yeah.
service for people who are playing this game, it's not going to have legs long term. I'm not making this to sell 50 copies this month and move on to the next thing. I'd like people to be playing one of these adventures, years from now, or remembering it anyway, as a fun time. So that's sort of my goal, is a little bit more long term.
So all that sounds so easy, right? It's easy.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
those challenge? There's so many challenges that go into each one of these stages. Just talking about them make them sound, yeah, I can do that. But there's challenges, right? What kind of challenges? What kind of ideas for those first timers do you have that you can offer that will save them some heartache, save them some trouble, keep them from wanting to gouge your eyes out, whatever.
Well, this goes back to my editing history, because I've given a lot of this advice to people that have written settings for Savage Worlds and other games. And it is, be brave enough to take out a bunch of stuff that you really love, but doesn't actually support your game being concise and easy to digest and easily read by a person who knows nothing about your setting when they come to it, right? That's really hard for creative people who are in love with their setting. They love every little detail of, the 200,000 words that they've already written over the last 5 years about their very intricate setting. And you have to be, when you're being paid by them, you have to be the one who says you have to delete like these 10 pages completely because they're great and they should be in some other addendum or something, but they've just got nothing at all to do with where we're going with this book. So I guess the advice is be concise as you can. Some people say kill your darlings. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that you really enjoy, and you just say, well, maybe it'll get in here somewhere else, but it's not going in this. And I have to take my own advice. I'm constantly right now. I'm gutting a manuscript for a release later this year where there's a whole bunch of stuff that I thought was like really smart and cool and interesting. And after, a dozen play tests, 0 people interacted with it at all. And, it has to be, carved out and made more streamlined. So be concise. For me personally, art was a real struggle. I already mentioned that. If you are an artist, you have a leg up because you can do all your own art, and that's fantastic. But for me, art is a struggle, just learning how to direct people, get what you want, get it in a timely manner, and stay on schedule. So that's a struggle. Um, and then the back end details of actually maintaining your products on Drive-Thru RPG, if that's what you're doing, was also something I was brand new at. So I tripped over every single step,
Oh yeah.
from start to finish. I will say that every time I emailed them and said I don't know what I'm doing, they were very good about emailing me back and saying, "Yep, we'll do it for you," or "Here's where you go," etc. So
Yeah, the
I give them
user interface could use
props.
a little tweaks. Their user interface could use some tweaks for sure on drive-through as far as the back end goes.
And And I will say this, they are aware of that. And they are like, because they're aware that there are some times when you just can't solve your problem. They're just, the interface doesn't let you and they have to do it on their end. So they're very willing to just hop on there, do it for you, send you an email and say, sorry about that. It's done. Here you go. So big props to them for being very helpful as I stumbled through my first one. And now through the print on demand formatting, which is sort of a different level of complexity there, which is done at this point and will go live whenever they've done their sort of back end thing. So yeah, there's a lot to learn. You have to wear a lot of hats if you're going to do it by yourself. You can't just be a really good GM and writer. You have to start thinking about all these other responsibilities from art director, editor, digital marketer, social media manager, etc.
So somebody's inspired now. There's somebody inspired to want to do this. What would you tell them? What would you tell them when they start their journey? Like, should they go ace? Is that the right choice? Should they, find an artist right away? Should they? What would you? How would you guide this person who just got inspired to get something for Savage Worlds out there into the public?
If they're not, if they are decided that they want to be an ACE licensee, then the first thing I would suggest they do is go talk to some other ones, because there are a bunch, and I know almost all of them are very willing to give you as much advice as you can ask about via text message or email or Facebook Messenger for free. They're just very generous people who like what they do and they want to share it with other people. So I would say pick some brains first and find out what you're worried about and ask them about it, and they'll tell you whether you really need to be worried about it or not. From that point, I would say if you're still confident about moving forward, focus in on one thing that you can do very well, because that's the thing you're going to submit for approval to Pinnacle. And so it needs to be sort of the level that it's going to receive approval. So put your best foot forward. And that means spend some extra time editing it. Do the best job you can with layout and art. and just make sure when you go to click send on that application email, you feel kind of 110%. This is my quality level that I'm submitting.
And I think another thing from a content perspective is if you're, let's say, a game master and you've got some really cool like module, or you have your setting like you mentioned, is you have to start thinking of somebody else using it, right? Someone else is going to be coming in. So all of the nuances that you just know because you know it, you got to start thinking about those. And like you said, kill your darlings when you've got,
Yeah.
500 pages on the cycles of the moon and the festivals throughout. Maybe it's not necessary. Maybe some of that stuff can be pruned back. So,
Yes.
for sure, yeah.
And one thing I would add that really helps with that is if you can even give just your notes that your draft as you have it, before layout, before art, before any of that. If you can provide that to somebody you trust, and say, you go run this from
Oh,
what I've
yeah,
written.
good idea.
Because you can play test anything you want, that's your GM style, and you've got it all up in your head, and you might not even need your notes. But give it to somebody who hasn't run it, or maybe somebody who hasn't even played it, and say, do me a favor, run that for your group. And then give me the notes on how good or bad it went, or where you got stuck, or whatever. And that helps you fix the product, right? Even if the adventure's good, they might say something like, the adventure was really great, but the stat blocks for the NPCs weren't at the end of each scene. They were all the way at the end of the book, and I had to keep flipping to get them. They should be at the end of each scene that they appear in, right? Little things like that go a long way for people not getting frustrated at the table.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea to have some trusted colleague run it for you. Good advice. Definitely good advice. So with that great advice, any last thoughts for the audience out there?
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is, I have found in the past, 5 or 6 years that the sort of the Savage Worlds community is highly creative. It's sort of a side effect of having a setting and theme agnostic rule set, is you attract all these creative people. And they're also a highly welcoming community. I found that when I wanted to get more involved in learning about how this stuff is created at a very high level, I was shocked that, when I looked in the books that I loved and looked at the names in the front cover, and then just went on Facebook and sent them a message, they all answered me and wanted to talk and hang out. And so I'm blown away by the welcoming and the willingness to share information, and I've made it a point to myself that I will pay that forward as well in any way that I can, because those folks that I look up to, really got me here. And so those next folks coming along, should someday somebody really like, some of my adventures or whatever, I'm happy to spend what time I can bringing them along and sharing any, life lessons I've learned along the way.
And that's great, because I think the settings versus a really in-depth great adventure, they might have a little bit different lesson learned for folks. So it's good to have folks who are willing to help out. I'm blown away when I do like my anniversary shows and celebrate something. I'll have like 6 people from PEG on the show. So I mean, they're just like so welcoming and just want to help the community, and just a little dumb YouTube channel. They're there helping out. So they're just fantastic. Everybody's fantastic. With the team as well.
And don't sell yourself short there, Carl. I mean, it's not a little dumb YouTube channel. I mean, I know, I've been watching it for quite a while. I know people refer to it. I know you are tied into the community, and you're getting the word out there about stuff, and you're creating good content. And I don't see a lot of what I would call filler content. I see like valid, stuff that you're putting out very regularly about it. So you're definitely keyed in, man, and you're important to PEG, and you're important to the community.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I really do. That's awesome for you to say. So absolutely fantastic talk. I have learned some stuff that I did not know. And I'm a swag guy, so I've got all sorts of swag ideas, but just even the inspiration around, and then some of the discussion on art and layout, and all really, really good, fantastic content for if you're being a swag, or even if you want to take your, you want to do something fan, but you want to take it to a different level. I think it's all really good advice, and I appreciate you being on. Once again, you've got lots of products in the pipeline, but right now we can get a Weird West Adventure: Shadows of the Sacred Hills.
Yes.
Again, it's a perfect. It is so good for convention. I might have to run it for a convention just because it's got really good pre-gens, and it's got the table tents. I mean, it's ready to go. Just grab it and go. It's really nice, really good, and the language is it's written really well for you to kind of pick out what needs to be done, and really, really nicely done. I'm not blowing smoke. It's really nicely done, and I'm sure your next one's going to be fantastic too. So,
thanks. Yeah, we're trying to get 4 out in 2024, and by we I mean me. We'll see. If everything goes perfect, that may happen. And either way, it's a fun ride, and we're going to see where it goes.
All right. Well, great. Thank you again, Peter, for being here. I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Again, look at the bubbles, do the stuff. If you've made it this far and you've learned something, definitely subscribe. We'll try to keep going, keep the content coming, and who knows, we'll have other folks on who have interesting stories too. So again, Peter, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all your effort that you've put into the product.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Savage World.